I must have been about 11 years old, and the science teacher told us that we'll need two burnt out matches for our science experiment when we come back to school. So we left his class, and we were all very excited because the next day was the junior gala, and because we were seniors now, we didn't need to come into school. So I went home that day, I rubbed it in my brother's faces, we went to bed, and they had to wake up early in the morning. They left with my parents who went to work and they went to school carrying their swimsuits. And I was left in the house with our harper, Digeledi. I remember watching TV throughout the day and playing on the PlayStation up until I realized maybe let me get ready for this science class. So the matches were kept up on the second floor. I got the matches and I lit them. Now understand, we lived in a double-story house and there was a thatch roof, so the thatch came all the way down and you could basically see it just standing right in front of it. I grabbed the matches, I was like, I'm going to light both of them at the same time. I lit the matches, and as I lit them, one of them slipped out my fingers. I watched in slow motion as it traveled towards the thatch and landed in the corner, and a fire sparked open. I rushed to my parents' room, and I remember getting into the bathroom, and there was my dad's big 500 milliliter beer glass. I filled it up with water, and I rushed back to where the fire had started, but at that point, it had gone from a small kindling thing and had filled up so much of the roof. I threw the little bit of water I had on, but it wasn't very helpful. At that point, I went into panic mode. I rushed into my parents' bedroom. I grabbed whatever clothes I could for them. I rushed back down. As I was rushing back down, Lady came like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, the house is burning down. And Lady's like, no. And she runs up the stairs. I'm like, don't go up the stairs. That's where the house is burning. But she was already gone. I threw my parents' clothes outside, came back inside, grabbed clothes for myself and my brother, went outside and threw those as well. And then I remembered I have to let the animals out. In the back garden, we had dogs and birds that we kept in an aviary. So I ran back inside the house. By this time, half of the roof was on fire and Digeledi was running down the stairs carrying the television. Obviously, she wasn't going to miss her episode of Isidingo and Generations that night. She carried the television out the front as I rushed to the back. I opened up for the dogs and rushed to the small corner of the garden where we had a small aviary where we kept hundreds of budgies. I opened the door and they could sense that something was wrong. And for a moment, I forgot that the house was burning because the birds flew out of the aviary past me and I watched them flying off into the distance for a moment. Ah yes, the fire. Now, basically the whole roof is burning and I still have to run through the house to get out. I ran through the garden, up the back stairs, through the house, and just as I stepped outside, the main beam holding up the roof collapsed inwards. And that was how I burnt my first house down. When my parents arrived, they asked me what I was doing, and all I could say was playing with matches. I guess there was no really way to explain that I had a science experiment due the next day. I think the next day we were actually on the front page of the Pretoria News. 6 fire trucks put out blazing inferno in Waterkloof Glen. I don't know where Digeledi is with the television, but I do like to think that somewhere, somehow, she's sitting watching her episode of Generations.